July, middle of July, we were at Allen Gardens at the Sunday lunch, and Sulin had come and was upset about the youth suicides and had lit a candle and really wanted to do something about it. So I joined Sulin on the 20th, and I've been here, and it's a vigil. So I'm here to bring awareness and knowledge to the public and community members and anybody that will listen to what we have to say.
This space represents a vigil for those mothers, grandmothers, families, and community members that are in need of support while they go through these hard times. But I'm also here to keep a visual presence and let people know that we have some concerns and grievances that we would like to address with them. Because as treaty partners from one nation to another, we need to start sitting down at the table with one another and having these open conversations. Because the current constructs of the colonial system don't allow for First Nations, Indigenous, Métis, Inuit people to have a voice, let alone to have a visual presence, as we've seen here in front of 25 St. Clair Avenue East, in front of the regional office of INAC. These suicides have been going on for decades. In 1990, these suicides saw Pakanjikum be the #1 suicide capital of the world. And therefore, that is 27 years later, here we are again, which was the onset of how we started. That Pakanjikum saw 5 members of their community, 2 of which came from one family in the month of July, committing suicide. Bringing the total numbers for the month of July up to 10 loss of lives due to suicides. I can tell you that no child should have to feel that hopeless in thinking that the only solution to their situation is to take their own lives. Like, I can't speak for other communities. I don't know what's going on. I can't tell you specific situations and cases because that's not what we do. We don't share other people's stories. They have to be the ones to share those stories. All I can tell you is that we have a problem with suicides, and it's contributed to colonialism, imperialism, resource extraction, lack of resources and funding, and access. I stayed home and thought about it and what we were going to do to help reduce, if not bring an end to these senseless deaths, because all of these deaths can be prevented.
We're here to amplify the voices that do not get heard, and to make the public aware of a lot of the propaganda and lies that they've been fed over the years, and stereotypes about First Nations people, about our ceremonies and traditions. And also, personally, I'm here to try to give people an understanding that they do have a choice. Maybe we're not ready for that right now, but down the road, I think we will be ready to have more of a sovereign voice and a self-government that is sustainable and that we already have in place with many of our wampums and teachings, and that we won't have to depend on INAC. But to get to that point, it's going to take a few years.
We've been met with the city trying to come and push us off the sidewalk, to the private ownership of the building trying to push us off their property, to the racism, blatant racism that has walked by and spit their venom at us, to those that have been complacent and willing to allow the current status quo to continue. We are looking at our opportunity and time here in front of INAC and the work that we're doing and the work that a lot of us out there are doing right now with all those resistance camps that are going on across the nation to change the narrative and the dynamics of what has been going on. We are also looking to create space for Indigenous people. We have all other nations that have come to these lands, and all other nations have their churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, you name it. They have their language, their culture, and everything. But what people don't understand, and what I think people need to take a moment to realize, is that those very things that they take for granted here on these lands were taken away from our people. Our people were killed for them. They were imprisoned for them. They were enslaved. They were starved. They were kept on reserve through the pass system because of them. And yet here, Canada is presenting this image to the world that they are inclusive. However, I can show you and tell you stats that prove otherwise.
So to right the wrongs of this colonial government, it's going to take people, and the work has to be done because First Nations people have been doing a lot of reconciliation work since we're born, and we'll continue to keep doing it because we are people that care about other people that come here, and we care about how people are living.
Indigenous people have and still do have a lot of work that has to be done for themselves and for their communities. And so we ask that the allies and the citizens out there help do some of that work by just going out there, accessing that information through your library, through the internet, and then find ways that you can come together and support these ideals and helping to bring about a better way and a new day for our Indigenous people, families, and communities. What we're looking for is immediate, short-term solutions to reduce the numbers of suicides and to gain access to resources and funding to allow for these communities to do what they need to do to help put their communities back together and heal their people.